Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about some more Modern on budget, and after yesterday, I really am in the mood for some combo. After that video, I actually went and I made this deck, and I adjusted little things, and I tested it out, and I am loving it so much. I'm going to have to grab some footage of some of the gameplay at some point. It just There were so many things that I didn't realize worked as well as they did until I played the deck. So the deck we're playing is Electra Balance, and it's a deck that I've looked at as kind of a meme forever. And then one of my friends is like, it's like one of the only decks they're kind of interested in playing. Anyway, so the purpose of the deck is to take 0 mana suspend cards like Ancestral Vision to draw 3 cards, Crashing Footfalls to create 2 Rhinos to trample, restore balance to completely obliterate your opponent with a particular combo in the deck, and you take cards like that and you play them for free by using cards like Dreadhorde Arcanist. Whenever it attacks, it may cast target instant or sorcery card with CMC less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist's power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If it would be put in your graveyard this turn and exile it instead. And then there's also Electra Dominance, which says deals X damage to any target. You may cast a card with convert mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So those are 8 cards in our deck. There is another card called As Foretold, and As Foretold I do like, but would have been $30 for the playset, and we could not afford that on this budget. But honestly, I think I like where this is. I think I like this deck. It's definitely powerful. You don't really need more than 8. You could have the extra 12 just be extra redundant, just kind of like it's potency and redundancy because you don't need more than this 8, but having it guarantees that you get it. Anyway, so the purpose of the deck is to cast those 0 drops without paying their mana cost. Now, Dreadhorde Arcanist has the wording that it needs to be in your graveyard, so either we'll end up discarding it just naturally, or our opponent will make us discard it, or actually something that is really sweet is Izzet Charm. Counter target non-creature spell unless it's controller pays 2, or deals 2 damage to target creature. So it's either a counter spell, a shock, or draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. So it's either a shock, it's either a counterspell, or it's Faithless Looting. Now that's very powerful, and I decided to toss it in as a 4 of because why not? Draw 2 cards, toss 2 cards from my graveyard, and then I attack with Dreadhorde Arcanist, and then I get the card that I just discarded with Izzet Charm, and I get to cast it. So that is very great. That's just awesome. And then on turn 2 is when you can play Dreadhorde Arcanist, or on turn 2 you could even play Electra Dominance for X equaling 0. Now I do like having Electra Dominance be higher, X equals higher than 0, so you can use it as removal as well as a way to get your other cards cast, your suspend cards cast. But if you're in a pinch, you can easily do it without feeling any remorse. We do have Opt. One could make an argument for Serum Visions in this spot, but I like Opt because you get that scry and then you can put it away and then draw it immediately. This is also instant speed, so it's limiting what we're doing necessarily on our own turn. It's just a personal preference between Serum Visions. Does technically let us scry 2, so see 3 cards, but Opt lets us draw, like that card that we're drawing this turn is not going to be drawn blindly. Anyway, Lightning Bolt as removal / interaction. Restore Balance is something I want to talk about in a moment. Footfalls, creating 2/4/4s with Trample. This can happen as early as turn 1. Because we do have Electro Dominance and we do have Simian Spirit Guide, so we can get those 4/4 Rhinos on turn 1, and that's a lot of pressure. Ancestral Vision, target player draws 3 cards. I wouldn't feel bad about just suspending this. Like turn one or turn 2, if you're trying to like be like, okay, I have Electro Dominance and I'm struggling between casting 2 different things. By all means, put this on suspend and have it wait, and then cast your Footfalls, and then later on, when your opponent is also running out of cards, you just draw 3 cards. So they might be trying to make you discard stuff, they might be trying to aggro you out, but if you're able to stabilize with those 4/4s, and then later on you just draw 3 more cards, suddenly if you were getting out of the game, you're suddenly back in. Anyway, so we do have this to draw extra cards. We have this to create a huge threat on the board. We have removal, we have filtering, we have one of our free casting spells, and we have flexibility. We do have Mystical Disputes in here, though, because of all those control decks out there, and because of the Tybalt's Trickery deck. It's just, we need to have those counter spells. We need to have ways to deal with our opponents who are doing things that are stupid. Anyway, for our creatures, we do have Simian Spirit Guide as a way to create a way to kind of just hasten our clock to make our combo go off, possibly even on turn 1. But also, if you don't need it for the mana later in the game, do just cast it, and there are a few things you can do with it. One of those things is sacrificing it to Greater Gargadon. Greater Gargadon is one of the only cards in the deck that we actually plan on suspending. There is Ancestral Vision, and if you have a bunch of suspend cards in your deck, in your hand, I wouldn't be opposed to you just casting them or trying to suspend them to get them on the clock. But Greater Gargadon says, sacrifice an artifact, creature, or land, remove time counter from Greater Gargadon. Activate this ability only if it's suspended. So this is a way we can suspend at turn 1 and play our deck normally. Just go along playing lands, playing our creatures, and then suddenly we have Electro Dominance, which we decide to cast Restore Balance. Restore Balance. Each player chooses a number of lands he or she controls equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest, then sacrifices the rest. Players sacrifice creatures and discards cards the same way. So lands, creatures, and cards in your hand. This is going to be huge because in response to Restore Balance, you can use Greater Gargadon to sacrifice certain parts of your board, namely your lands, and you can decide what you want to do with your creatures. If you want to sacrifice your creatures, you don't really have a lot of creatures. Likelihood is your opponent has more, so they'll be sacrificing all of those. The biggest part about this is the sacrificing a land. So once you do this, you can pretty much sacrifice all of your lands, or really almost all of them. And then you can get Restore Balance resolved, which will make them basically wipe their entire board. The reason why this is why you would even want to wipe your own board is in this scenario, you're probably in a lot better of a place than them after the board wipe. When you play board wipes, you have to decide, can I recover faster? And seeing as you just removed a whole load of counters from your Greater Gargadon, you can probably recover faster with your 9/7. Anyway, and that's actually recastable with Dreadhorde Arcanist. So even if it's, then they try to rebuild and they actually do get more lands or do get more creatures, you can just Restore Balance again. But Greater Gargadon is a 9/7. It's a huge threat, and once you plop it down on the board, they can't fatal push it. They can't. They can Path to Exile it, but they can't dismember it. They can't lightning bolt it. They can't do anything like that. So the idea is just to use Electro Dominance, use Arcanist to cast any of your suspend cards, namely Balance, once you're mid-late game, to just completely obliterate their board, and then just build up back way faster than they can. Our mana base, and whenever I make mana bases, guys, you can always improve on them. I'm sticking to a budget. I'm saying, yes, this is actually how it can work. This is how the deck can still function and do it well, do its job well. So we have 3 island and 6 mountain because of the sheer amount of red that we're running. But we do want to hit that blue for our early game, like Mystical Dispute, Opt, and Izzet Charm. And all 3 of those are important. And let's say we want Ancestral Vision early on, we can hit that too. So we do want those islands, otherwise it'd be lower. And we do want Shivan Reef because it's a way that we can get that blue or red mana, and it's a very cheap card. And then Temple of Epiphany, actually, it does enter tapped, but it does filter our deck. It gets us to our scrying, it gets us to our free casters or the cards we're trying to cast. But that's the main deck. It's fairly simple. Just Dreadhorde Arcanist, Electro Dominance into one of your suspend spells. Then our sideboard consists of Tormod's Crypts, just because it's a way for us to, on a budget, deal with our opponent's graveyard. We're really not wanting to play Relic here because we don't want to exile our own graveyard. If you wanted to, you might be able to consider running Soul Guide Lantern. I want our early game mana to be going towards our combo, so having a 0-drop that does it is very nice. Then 4 Braids, because Braids can be, if our opponent chalices on 0, then our suspend cards get so much worse. Our deck is basically ruined. So having a Braid is able to fight back on that. If our win condition is casting Footfalls, then Ensnaring Bridge can get us. But it's just a way to deal with any pesky artifacts. Pyroclasm for decks that go way wider than us, way faster than us, to the point where we are not able to cast Balance. Then this is just in there for an extra way to just go wide. In a deck like that, you would take out the Disputes because they wouldn't, like, a deck that you would use this again is possibly like Burn. Bring out the Disputes because they won't be useful. Bring in the Pyroclasms. Then Blood Sun as a budget option to Blood Moon, and though it's not the same, like, it's not the same card, but I don't think I would even replace Blood Moon. This is just very good because it lets our lands do what they want to do, because we're not running any fetches, but it lets our deck do what it wants to do, and it does cripple our opponents. Anyway, let me know if you like the deck. The deck is pretty sweet, and I'm glad to see that it's able to be turned into a budget deck. Anyway, if you have any questions on the strategy, the card choice, or any specific synergies, let me know, and I will see you next time.